All right, call to worship you can find on the top of the bulletin. There is but one presence and one power in the universe and in my life. God, the good, and omnipotent. And in my life. Not out there someplace, but in my life. That power is there.
You know, so we can hear every word.
Yes, every word. Can you hear me in the back row?
Yes, thank you.
Good. Well, happy Mother's Day, everybody.
Thank you.
So many examples of motherly love all around us. Every week, Rose gives birth to at least one new song. So, fantastic job, Rose.
Thank you.
Today we're celebrating that whole process of birthing and nurturing and bringing into the world. And all the qualities that go with motherly love. In the Taoist tradition, they have the yin and the yang. So the yin describes the characteristics of motherly love. And I think of water. So water is fluid, water flows. Water is terrifically strong, and the Chinese say that water will wear down even rock, one drip at a time. You can see that if you go up to Ithaca and walk in the canyons and see what the water has done to the rock throughout the ages. So every time I've prepared a few of these in the past, and doing so this time, I'm always at a little bit of a conundrum because of it's not just mothers that have motherly love, or the qualities of motherly love, of course, but women. Let's say that women usually have more of it than men, and the roles sometimes can differ. In some of the traditional indigenous societies, one I visited in Central America. Oh, the bell is going off.
Outside. I find it. I'm sorry.
The Shuar people of the Amazon jungle in Ecuador, they say that men do all the work that is dangerous, so they'll go out and they'll hunt animals, they'll do the hunting, and they'll cut down the trees. That can be kind of dangerous. And women do all the work that is exhausting. But it's the women that tell the men when to stop cutting the trees. So the wisdom, the divine wisdom, comes through the feminine in that culture. So as you may remember, Anne Jarvis is credited with establishing Mother's Day as an official holiday, or at least an observation of Mother's Day. And she is said to have written, our mothers have done more for us than anyone else in the world. So whether they helped pay for our education, chauffeured us to countless events, cleaned up the mess we left in the kitchen or the bedroom, most of us are quite indebted to our mothers. And perhaps more than any other undertaking, motherhood is transformational. It changes the person who becomes a mother. I like this quote from Karen Lindvig, who is the minister at the Unity Church in Seattle. She was talking about how motherhood changes women. See if any of this resonates. She says, the truth is, being a mom changes you at the core of your being. Studies have shown that physiologically, women's brains actually increase shortly after giving birth. So the regions associated with emotions, reasoning, judgment, the senses, and reward behavior, that doesn't leave too much out. The whole brain changes. So a woman is changed biologically, physiologically, by the advent of birth. And there's a cute poem called Before I Was a Mom, talking about how motherhood changed her, written by Anonymous, we don't know who, but she says, before I was a mom, I slept as late as I wanted. I never worried about how late I got into bed. I brushed my hair and brushed my teeth every day. Before I was a mom, I never tripped over toys. And I never worried about which of my plants was poisonous. Before I was a mom, I'd never been puked on, pooped on, spit on, chewed on, or what else?
Kicked or punched.
Kicked
All
or
at the same
punched.
time.
I had complete control of my mind and my thoughts and my emotions. I slept all night. There's a pretty consistent theme of sleep through this poem. And before I was a mom, she concludes, I didn't know the feeling of having my heart outside of my body. Whoa. Of course, moms, like the rest of us, like all of us, are only human. Not everyone has had a mother who fulfills the ideal of love and support. Not everybody's mom was represented on the Doris Reed show back in the 60s. But for better or for worse, Mother's Day and thinking about our moms is charged with emotion. So whether we had a good mother or a not so good mother or somewhere in between, see if you can just be with what is. Don't take it personally. Just patterns getting passed down through the generations. We're all doing the best we can. The author Jill Churchill has a great quote. She says, "There is no way to be a perfect mother, and a million ways to be a good one." So on Mother's Day, the invitation is to look at the glass that's at least half full, if not more so, and to find some good things to say in appreciation for our moms. So if you had a perfect or nearly perfect mother, that's a no-brainer. If your mother was less than ideal, then it's still good for us and it's good for them to focus on the positive. So I have a short list here. I'll get started and then I'll ask you guys to share some of the things you appreciate about your mothers. So I appreciate my mother's love of animals and gardening. So I'm in the house where I grew up, and I still think of her when I see the garden out back. The azaleas are in full bloom now. I appreciate her resilience. She was born, her brother only lived 9 months. He died, and then she was born, I guess, a year after that. So she was raised as an only child. You know, like I said, there's patterns that get passed down. Her mother was emotionally abusive to her, and so that had a great impact on her. And when she turned 18, she couldn't wait to get out of Dodge. She grew up in a small Ohio town, moved to the big city, Cleveland, and got her nursing degree. And it was there she met my father, and they got married, and they wound up moving here. So I admire her resilience. And when I was just finishing college, my father divorced her, so she you know, did what she had to do to land on her feet financially, and so she sustained herself that way. So I admire that resilience. And she chauffeured us, as many of us, I'm sure, chauffeured us all around to all kinds of sporting events and school activities. And then when I was a senior, I guess, she went back. She was a stay-at-home mom, but then she went back to work full-time to help pay for our education, myself, my sister, and my brother.
Wow.
And from her, I got my social conscience. She volunteered for the Ideal Hospital Auxiliary, if you remember that hospital. I remember a fundraiser in our backyard for muscular dystrophy. We were all doing, "Go, you chicken fat, go." My brother was like 3 years old, and he was like doing it in his time compared to everyone else. We have that on the Super 8 film. And And then she was the one that organized a petition for our street to get curbs. So she was kind of a go-getter organizer that way. And she plugged into, and then she ran our SVP, Retired Senior Volunteer Program, for 20 years out of Catholic Charities. So how about you? What 2 or 3 things would you like to share that you appreciate about your mom, Diane?
My mother, so I've just, ever since she's I've just been all emotional because moms and babies and everything. And my mom, her first daughter died a year before I was born. She was hit by a car, and she was 8, and then they got pregnant with us, my twin brother and I, and so she raised us, and she was still in so much grief, and it was, she wasn't open, and she wasn't loving, and she wasn't attentive. My father noted the difference between the way she was with my older brother and sister than she was with us, and I think as part of the way to dilute the pain that was going on in that first year before they also adopted. So, I've got so many siblings, my story's just nuts, right? But throughout it all, my mother taught me how to be bold, how to play with color, how to be enthusiastic about things that I'm passionate in life. She taught me how to be passionate about more than just passion. She was feminist, and she did an amazing job raising feminist boys. And so my brothers are incredible men that are amazing fathers themselves. And she taught me to care about more than my own life and to care about the community around me. I remember going knocking door to door for, political candidates that were union activists, it was I was 6 and I was already doing this. Yeah, I know, I was little. So I really love my mother for what she gave me, and it's taken me decades to get to a point where I can be understanding about what she wasn't able to give me. And I'm going to see her on Wednesday, and I'm very happy. So
Beautiful.
Sure.
I hope that wasn't too long.
My story is similar to her. I'm a twin, and my mother lost a baby girl, and so the similar situations. But on top of that, she lost her brother in the war. He was a photographer at 22, and with no weapons or anything like that, he painted the war, and he photographed the war, and he was left with nothing. And out in front, so he died. He got hit. And at a young age, and then her other brother died of cancer, and then her sister died because someone had carried her as a child down the stairs, and she became a paraplegic, and they'd fallen, and so she died early in her teens, like when she was 12. So my mother always had that sense of resiliency. But the one thing that I remember through all that adversity and all the sadness, and she was divorced as well, that she went through, I can remember even as early as a child, her playfulness. And she would kiss my toes, and she would tickle me under the chin, and just lots of giggles, lots of laughter with twins, which was very difficult. And in this life, now that she is 90, I have to remind her of that playfulness, because now she's become so serious at the end of her life, and I try to remind her to laugh and to giggle and to have a good time. But that was a gift that she gave me, is that we all become too serious. And I do remember even as an adult, she would say the funniest things during game time or playing, cards or whatever. So it's a reminder that we all need to find joy no matter what's going on in our lives.
Thank you. Mary?
My mother loved to go camping and loved the outdoors and loved summer
Can you
camp.
give her
My mother loved camping.
You're going to turn off yours.
When I was a little kid, I don't even remember how old I was, maybe 2 or 3. She went.
Use the mic, Mary.
She was a counselor at the Salvation Army summer camp for something called Girl Guards. And rather than hire a babysitter, she dragged me and my brothers along, and I was 3. And I had a snake in my pocket. And my brother told on me. She told me that to put it in the sleeping bag of the person who babysat us, Rosemary, who babysat us. And we thought the snake had snuck out until during the middle of the night, Rosemary screamed and let us scream. And that was my mom. My mom had such a crazy sense of humor. And I really love that. And she also had a place inside of her that made her make 10 dozen cookies every month and take them to the induction center so that the guys who were being drafted didn't think that nobody cared.
Wow. Oh, that's sweet.
Jerry?
Is she still around, or?
No, she's been
Yeah,
gone
my
by
mother
20
ate a lot of blood-based paint chips when she was a little girl, and she wasn't quite there. As my brother says, a couple fries short of a Happy Meal. But I do remember when she passed, had a chance to say a few words about my mother. And the thing that came to my mind was her childish faith. I mean, I started by saying, Jesus loves me, this I know because my mommy told me so. You know, it was something I learned from her about her childish faith that she never lost. She was not always there. She had a difficult life. She married a verbally abusive alcoholic, just as the mother of my kids did. But, you know, she managed to raise 3 sons, and we all managed to do okay for ourselves. And the mother of my kids managed to do okay for themselves too with my kids. So I'm grateful for all mothers and the difficulties they go through.
I don't know whether I should try this,
Go ahead.
but there's kind of a couple messages in this. So, I'd say that my mother really raised us because my father didn't. So the biggest thing she gave, particularly me, I have a brother and sister, is a real sense of freedom. I'm not sure she intended it, but she was not what you call kind of mothering, smothering. She was just the opposite. So I could do pretty much anything I wanted for those 18 years. So I could be very independent. So I never saw my mother ever hug or kiss anybody, anything. This includes her grandchildren. So there's that aspect of her. So she goes in a nursing home. She was there for 5 years. I would see her regularly. It's probably about a 3rd year. So I finally heard her say, "I love you."
Wow.
Within a couple more visits, she's hugging.
And
I'm
she's,
just
well,
blew my mind. So I was with her when she died, and she died like on Thursday. I had an appointment that Saturday to see a local woman I know who's psychic. And she does emotional clearing. So she's been doing this with me. And I said, well, I shouldn't have this kind of trouble. I control myself.
You know,
You know how to control.
You're surely not
it's
yourself.
not about control.
So she said, no, you need
it's
to come.
okay.
So I trusted her, and I said, okay, I'll come. And she told me some things. She says, well, your mother was right here. She's standing there, and she wants you to know. She really did love you. And the reason the relationship happened between us is because it was a contract. That's before I really knew about contracts that we all have. That just, talk about emotional clearing. So I don't think I can go any further anyway. So, thanks.
Thank you.
I just got cleared.
You just got cleared, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, great. There you go. Anybody else? I saw yours on Facebook. That was a nice tribute. To your mom?
Oh, that was my sister.
Oh, that was your sister?
Yes.
Well, it's your turn to speak.
Okay, I guess. Okay. I admire my mother's unconditional love. And she hasn't been perfect, and she's faltered at times, but she always comes back, you know, to being with that unconditional love. The Facebook post was something my sister put up. My sister was always the one who was good with words. And she wrote this beautiful thing about my mom being her queen and all this stuff. And I don't go on Facebook much, but I was gonna respond and just say, no fair, she's the one who has all the words, you know? But I just said something like, you know, love you, Mom, and, you know, Happy Mother's Day. Now, May 10th is Mexican Mother's Day, so that's when my sister put it up a couple days ago. And yeah, my mother has made a lot of sacrifices, and she's, you know, come a long, long way, and I just admire her so much. Also on May 10th, I became a grandma again, just a couple days ago. Okay,
Congratulations.
Congratulations,
Thank
yeah.
So yeah, it's a mixed bag today.
Mm.
But yeah, so thanks.
I would like to share about my mother, who was part American Indian and was always whistling beautiful music. And the most fabulous thing that she would do for me is she would wake me up in the morning and say, come on downstairs and let's laugh. She just constantly laughed and wanted to keep me happy. And I adored my mother. I was extremely dyslexic, and she was always so worried because I couldn't read and write until I was close to 16. But she never made me feel guilty when she finally realized that I had this issue, but she just kept me laughing. And she passed at 46. And I believe that it was a contract because she was always so worried about me that she would never leave my side. And I know that when she passed, I received all this energy and became very, very successful in everything that I did. And I believe that was my mother guiding everything. Because my mother kept the most beautiful home, I kept the sloppiest room. But when she passed, I just kept everything like her. And she would always have fresh roses next to my bed. I mean, how divine is that, really? So I'm thrilled to be celebrating my mother in heaven and all my wonderful friends here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I was gonna just say,
Vera?
I'll say a little bit, but my mother was born in Italy, and she had to go through World War II as a young person, I guess a young teenager, and she endured all kinds of bombing in Italy. And she told me later when she came, you know, she immigrated to this country and then told me as an adult she would never go back because of the bombing, that it so destroyed her whole image of Italy. And Italy is a beautiful country, and lots of people like to visit it, and she could never go back. And then she got cancer when she was 67, lung cancer, in New Jersey, and she never smoked. My father never smoked, and she never went out to work, really. So she wasn't exposed to outdoor stuff. But she tried her best. She wanted to live so much. So she lasted like 3 years and took all kinds of treatment. And she was always careful to like have a good diet and not, you know, drink or smoke or anything. And she said, all this poison is going to my body, you know, the chemotherapy. And she allowed the poison because she wanted to live. And she said, I want to see more, I want to experience more. And she went into remission for a while, and then it came back. But I find that, you know, desire to live despite the odds. And whatever she went through in Europe, and then later with a very abusive husband, which is my father, she still wanted to live. So I find that kind of amazing, but so I want to thank her for being my mother.
Thank you, Vera. Anyone else? Oh, Carol.
That was beautiful.
My mother's love was completely conditional. I would not loved if I didn't do what she said, what she thought I should. And like Jim, the hugs were maybe 5, but it helps me to think about the conditional, or about the contract
Yeah.
point of view. And one thing that she did was she was the most interested person in my children. So it was wonderful for her to, I could share anything about them, all the details she was interested in, which is lovely. So, and she loved to read, and she passed that on to me. Thank you, Jim, for that concept. I hadn't thought about my mother in that way.
Anyone else? Miss Liana? I see your eyes looking at me.
I don't know where I can start. One of the things that has been kind of a blessing and a curse to me is that I'm resembling my mother almost totally. The older I get, the more, physically in all ways. And so as I struggle with that, I also realize that, oh my God, I mean, my relationship with her was so rich, and my love of music and dance and theater and people and children and international affairs and just, you name it. She was just a very, very powerful woman and gave me so much. But at the same time, it's been really difficult to hold all of that. And we even got to a place in our relationship where there was a lot of competition. And I think I actually shut down because I felt that competition and did not pursue in the acting and the music the way I really, really wanted to, because I would then have been treading on her turf. But it's been a very interesting, and we talked a lot about contract. We talked about how we had been around each other many times before and in different relationships. And so the spiritual piece was really, really strong. And she actually, between the two of us, we came into unity pretty much together. And she was one of the instigators here with this group, this community. And it just goes on and on. So.
What's her first name?
Dorothy.
Dorothy?
Yeah. And she was a member of the Larkin family. So if any of you are familiar with the music house that used to be here in Binghamton, music house. Yeah. She was a harpist and a composer and a poet. Oh my God, her poetry is fabulous.
Huh.
So,
Is she published at all? Or?
No.
Right? Thank you.
And I was with her when she died, and it was the sweetest moment of my life.
That's sweet.
Big moment. Anybody else? All right. Thank you for that sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
This is the one I'm using. This is the one I'm not using. So, can you hear me in the back? Yeah, so I heard a little bit of publicity about the birth of the new royal baby. And apparently, I couldn't find it on YouTube, but apparently at some point, Harry, the father, came out in front of the cameras and they were asking him about the birth. And he said, the birth, oh, it was amazing. And, well, what about your son? He is amazing. Well, how about your wife? She's amazing. And then he added, and after hearing our stories today, what adversities so many of our mothers and so many of us have had to overcome along the way. The writer Laura Stavo Harm wrote a book in 1998 about natural childbirth. And in it she wrote, we have a secret in our culture, and it's not that birth is painful, it's that women are strong.
Yeah, right.
So much of the time strength is portrayed as the male part of that, but women are so resilient. And we've heard that this morning. And then in the same book she wrote, I've never been the same since the birth of my twins. It was a difficult birth, but because motherhood, I've never been the same because motherhood in its entirety is such a transformational experience. So I liked also what Jim said about the contract, to draw comfort from that. Because I too, like Diana, the emotional abuse that started, it probably started before then, but that I know of with my mother's mother, went to my mother, and then my mother to me. And it took me decades to come to terms with that. And somebody else was saying the things that, well, the things that I didn't get, that I wish I had gotten. But my brother, who was last of three, youngest of three, I heard him say once, well, I knew deep down under all the agita, I knew that she loved us, and that was enough. So he interpreted it very differently and came to terms with it much earlier in his life. So, you know, we all do what we do when we do it. And another metaphor that I like is that we're all playing a role in the divine play. So we all have our role to play. And we heard about your grandson. We're sorry to hear that he passed, but he too has his role to play, however short and brief, and other people live into their 90s. So we all play our role the best we can. So I'd like us all to stand for a blessing, a mother's love blessing, and form a circle here.
I'm going to do the Hawaiian. Forgiveness. Forgive me, I love you. That would work right now.
Yeah. All right. We can make our circle bigger maybe if we come back here. So I invite you, before the blessing, I'd like us to include our mothers by name. So if you wish, please say the name of your mother out loud before I give the blessing. So we include her in this blessing as well.
Jude.
Barbara.
No.
Wendy.
Miriam.
Anna. Ellen. Sherry.
Mary.
Shirley.
Lisa.
Dorothy.
Thelma.
As we open to the presence of the Divine Feminine upon these, our mothers and the mothers here in our assembly, and mothers everywhere, we focus our appreciation on the nurturing wisdom, strength, and creativity of women of spirit. And may the mothers in our lives and we ourselves, with our motherly love, continue to carry the hope, the promise, the potential of all mothers for their children, no matter what their age, if they're here or not here. And may we, with our motherly love, continue to be their inspiration. May we be the wind beneath their wings, lifting them up so that they can fly forth into a world of their own making, formed on the foundation of our motherly love. And may it be so. Amen. All right, you're welcome. Please retake your seats.
Thank you, Rick. Very good.
Excuse me.
Just wanted to add, I was fortunate, I took care of my mother for the last 8 years of her life. She had Alzheimer's, and I got to know my mother as a child. I played with all the moms, but I never knew her as a child. One of my biggest blessings.
In Binghamton, and maybe go to Edgewood.
She was a child.
Yes, childlike.
Alzheimer's
She needs a ride, I guess.
back to her childhood.
I can take her, maybe I'll come back that night.
Yeah.
Okay.
And our first congregational song, Rose is going to play The Goodness of God, which is written by Sue Riley.
It's a great song. I like that.
These are the hands, this is the voice, to celebrate the goodness of God. I lift up my hands, I lift up my voice, to celebrate the goodness of God. So as we lift our hearts wide open, fill us with praise, that we may walk in the fullness, the wonder of your grace. These are the hands, this is the voice, to celebrate the goodness of God. I lift up my hands, I lift up my voice, to celebrate the goodness of God. We hear your voice in the silence, a whisper sweet and clear. And it is then we discover your presence ever near. Ours are the hands, ours is the voice, to celebrate the goodness of God. Celebrate. We lift up our hands, we lift up our voice, to celebrate the goodness of God. To celebrate the goodness of God. To celebrate the goodness of God. Celebrate, celebrate, celebrate.
Great opening song. Great opening song.
Yeah, that was great.
It reminds me back to that power, that statement we made at the beginning. The one power is God, the good. And we can't be deceived with bad things because we know it has no power unless we give it to it, you know. But in all reality, God is in all things, and therefore, God is always good. Everything's always good. Time for announcements. I see on the back of this bulletin that we have Rick Gridley today. Next Sunday's going to be Jamie Walters. And we also have our cover dish dinner following the service. So, if you'd like,
That's next week, you mean?
that's next week. Next week, the 19th,
Mhm.
is our cover dish. So if you'd like, bring a cover dish in and your appetite. And if you can't bring a cover dish, just bring your appetite and join us to break bread together and a little fellowship after the service next Sunday. And then on the following Sunday, the 26th, we have Jim Bryden. And perhaps he's willing to share a little bit of what he wants to talk about, or haven't you decided yet?
Yeah, I'll give you, so you can be prepared. Belief. Belief.
Belief.
What do you think about belief?
All right. That's the first step towards faith. All right, that sounds good. Any other announcements?
Yeah, there's something else on that page, though. Are we
Thank you
doing?
for joining us.
Yeah. And are we doing that today? We're
That
gonna.
was
That's
last
after
Sunday.
the service.
Oh, okay,
It was
yeah.
just a thank you for coming last week. It was a great meeting, and as we said last week, the new board will meet briefly today after church
Oh, they are?
to talk about, to elect officers and figure out the details of board stuff.
So it's
Yeah.
gonna be a brief meeting?
Brief meeting.
Because it's Mother's Day.
So happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mommy Day.
For those of us who have forgot to renew membership, can that still be done
That
online?
can still be done, yes. I believe we have some membership forms. Back in, good point, thank you.
There's also an online form that you can use.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Very good. I'm glad people are on top of this. Don't leave it up to me.
Yeah, we missed you last week.
Thank you.
So we also welcome new members with our open hearts and our doors to new individuals and families. We know that the right and perfect people are joining us at the right and perfect time. So it is.
So it is.
It's time to greet our neighbors. Special unity moment. If something happened during the week that reminds you of God's presence, or something synchronistic, or anything that you'd like to share as a unity moment, this is the time to share it.
I'm also part of Tabernacle. I was their secretary, and they had, this weekend, they had their chicken barbecue, which meant all day Saturday, or Friday, and all day Saturday, people were working so hard. And these are people like in their 70s and 80s and 90s, and it just touched my hearts, how much they care. And just the beauty of their souls dedicated to wanting their church to prosper. You know, it just touched me so deeply. Seeing them and watching their endeavor and wanting, you know, even for us to grow more, to emulate and to bring more people in and to grow unity.
When you see people working together like that, you realize the ideal in the mind of God when He created mankind is we're supposed to work together, you know?
Yes, they're so different. You know, every walk of life, you know, from the homeless guy to, you know, the high, and everybody just working together, plucking chickens, and you know, it just touched me so deeply.
They really did pluck chickens?
Well, there were a few feathers.
Oh, yeah?
Any other?
Yeah, I just would like to say how thrilled and the miracles that have happened to me since I come to Unity, meeting all these divine people. You're all so, so wonderful. But this young lady over here, Deanna, has given me just the most fabulous thing. I'm going to be staying at her place for 30 days with this huge porch that's all windows like this, and I'll be able to paint every day. Plus there's young people staying that are great writers, and they're going to help me finish my memoir. So thank you. And I want to honor this woman. We should all honor Vera for the work that she's done with the fracking and really helping Mother Earth, because we really need not to be doing that. So I feel so blessed to know you all. Thank you, all of you.
Well, I guess I have to say that I had the unity moments, the back-to-back unity moments lately of, you know, I was looking for someone who could house sit, and Brooke was gonna do it, and she needed to get her driver license to do that, and learn how to drive, because, you know, she's gotta be able to take my cat to the vet if something were to happen, but that didn't work out, the timing is wrong, but we're gonna keep working on that, and hopefully she'll get her license soon anyway. But then I needed to find somebody else who could, and that same day, Carol called me. Who's looking after your cat while you're gone? Well, funny you should ask. So it really, truly is miraculous, and it's working out. And a couple of my undergraduates are, you know,
divine.
They need, she especially needs someplace. She's in a bit of a toxic roommate situation, and she, you know, it's becoming. I feel like my home is turning into a bit of a haven while we're out of town, and I wish I could be there, but I won't be. I'll be gone, and I'll be back on Father's Day.
I'll be enjoying your beautiful place.
Yeah, so but it's all working out, you know, to everybody's greatest, highest, and best, and everybody's, and I truly believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't always feel it, but I truly believe it.
We're learning. We're just learning. That's all.
Very good. Is that it? Okay. It's time for the blessing of our prayer requests. Do you have any special prayers? There is a box of prayers. Mary, did you have something?
Nadine's daughter-in-law was this week, and the little girl is in the NICU, and the little boy passed 45 minutes after birth.
Oh.
So our prayers definitely go out
Wow.
for Nadine and her family.
Nadine's grandchild, newborn.
So.
Her grandson?
He was not stillborn, he was born alive and passed 45 minutes later.
And this is Nadine's.
This was Friday.
This would be her grandson?
Yes.
Oh wow.
And what did you say about her granddaughter's in NICU.
They were twins.
Yes.
Oh, they were twins.
And
Oh.
they knew the birth was, that there were difficulties. They were expecting problems.
Yes.
And
Oh.
so they were prepared, and even so,
Yeah, it doesn't change.
yeah,
that
no, we've done
the
that.
heartache.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
pray for her.
So one
so-
survived. You're saying one survived and one
Yes.
didn't. Oh.
Yes.
Wow.
And so,
He had birth defects that would have prevented him from surviving.
Oh.
But we know that everything is just for time.
but the other one,
Pray for her
the other
family.
one don't have birth defects.
No,
So she's
it's
still.
in the infant intensive care unit, the newborn intensive care NICU.
Hopefully.
It's
Yeah.
also a reminder that oftentimes blessings are in tragedy.
Yeah.
You know, you can find the blessing hidden in a tragedy sometimes.
Hmm.
Sometimes we
prayers
don't
go
know
out.
it for a while,
Yeah,
but
Yeah.
eventually God reveals all
all
everything
things
to
work
us.
out for the good for those who believe.
Amen.
So that's the blessing of a prayer request. It's also in the bulletin. If you'd like to join me in reading it out loud. God,
That's all.
In eternity, wholeness established in every area of our lives, and so it is.
He's doing his perfect work, whether we see it or not. He's doing his perfect work in and through us. Do I have somebody who's willing to read the daily word?
I'll read it. You can copy that one.
Oh, you got more?
Oh, right. Yeah, there's people. So Sunday, May 12th, motherly love. I give thanks for the motherly love of God in all its human expressions. Unity co-founder Myrtle Fillmore has been called the mother of unity. Myrtle wrote, "It is my great joy to perceive somewhat of the mother side of God, the divine love that never fails. In prayer, I bless all who have played a motherly role in my life, not just the mother whose love gave me birth. I bless everyone, male or female or any other gender, who has shared with me the divine love that never fails. Everyone who has nurtured me, who has encouraged me by believing in my potential for good, has blessed me with the motherly love of God. Just as I have received, I give love in return, sharing comfort and understanding. I am grateful to be an expression of motherly love. As a mother comforts her child, so I will comfort you. You shall be comforted in Jerusalem. Isaiah 66:13. Do you want me to do the prayer? And meditation?
If you will.
Let us sink down into our rooted and centered and most divine place within us. We give thanks today, O Lord, Mother, Father, Goddess, for the Mother, the Father, and the Goddess. We give thanks for the mothers who are grieving for their losses, be they new or old. We give thanks and know that you are caring for them and their babes with you. We know that you are showering upon the living all that they need to be whole and healthy so they can grow into their divine selves. And we send our love to the motherless children who send out hugs to their mothers long past and grandmothers. We see in this process the cycle of life coming together. We know at times it cuts to the core, and at other times it is so full of blessings and love and joy that our hearts spill out with all the goodness like a bouquet of lilacs. And we know that the cutting grief and the beautiful flowers are all part of your plan, and we are so grateful to have our one little role in divine plan. Thank you, God. Amen.
Special music.
The earth is our mother. We must take care of her.
know, the earth is our mother. You might know that one.
Uh-huh.
So that's how it started. And then I thought, maybe I'll add a little different melody and add a few
Yeah, I
words.
like that.
And then it just kind of, unfolded yesterday, and so that's what came out.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good one, I like that.
Terrific, yeah.
Now it's time for Gridley.
These are the gifts of the goddess, love, joy, and peace. Gifts of the goddess, are you ready to receive all the gifts of the goddess? Love, joy, and peace. Gifts of the goddess, are you ready to receive? Love, are you ready? Joy, are you ready? Peace, are you ready? Are you ready to receive? These are the gifts of the goddess, love, joy, and peace. Gifts of the goddess, I am ready to receive. All the gifts of the goddess, love, joy, and peace. Gifts of the goddess, I am ready to receive. Love, love, I am ready. Are you ready? Joy, joy, I am ready. Are you ready? Peace, peace, I am ready. Are you ready? I am ready to receive. These are the gifts of the goddess, love, joy, and peace. Talk about gifts of the goddess, I am ready to receive. All the gifts of the goddess, love, joy, and peace. Gifts of the goddess, I am ready to receive. Compassion, are you ready? I am ready. Forgiveness, are you ready? I am ready. Laughter, are you ready? I am ready. I am ready to receive. Passion, are you ready? I am ready. Success, are you ready? I am ready. Abundance, are you ready? Yes, I am ready. I am ready to receive. These are the gifts of the goddess, love, joy, and peace. Gifts of the goddess, I am ready to receive. All the gifts of the goddess, love, joy, and peace. Gifts of the goddess, I am ready to receive. I am ready. I am ready. I am ready. Ready to receive. Yes, I am ready to receive.
I want to thank everybody for participating. We close by singing the peace song. You can find the words there. And then we'll follow that with the prayer of protection. Words are there. So if we can find the circle again.